Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Soberanis. I am the Senior Sustainable Building Specialist with the Port Authority by way of Croxton Collaborative Architects. Thank you for joining. And today we're going to quickly walk you through what the process for the determination of the applicability of the Sustainable Building Guidelines for a project, how that tends to go, as well as to walk you through how to complete SPIF forms, credit checklists. So we go into the agenda. First part will be to discuss the Sustainable Project Initiation form and its workflow. So we'll discuss the Sustainable Design workflow, completing the SPIF form with common challenges. We'll pause for a question and answer after that. Then we will move on to the Sustainable Building Guidelines form access. This means once the determination has been made that the SPIF, by the SPIF, that the Sustainable Building Guidelines apply to this project, how we go about giving you access to the Sustainable Building Guidelines documentation forms, that being the checklist and the templates. We'll walk you through that process, and then we'll again pause for questions and answers. Then we'll move on to the second part, which is the actual Sustainable Designs TAA submission, where we will begin first to walk through the completion of the project checklist, and then move on to examples of credit template completion, as well as examples of what credit supporting backup documentation look like, and give you some quick tips on common challenges, so that your questions can be answered ahead of time if you have any of these. And then we'll lastly end with questions and answers. So without further ado, we'll just dive right in. This is the Sustainable Design workflow, where, as with all, whether it be a new tenant or an existing tenant, once there is a project that either changes the leasehold or doesn't change the leasehold, but through the process of lease negotiations, agreements, and your project initiation form, not to be confused with the Sustainable Project Initiation form. The project initiation form will make a determination whether this is a minor works application or an actual TAA. If it is a minor works application, then the project will be exempt from the Sustainable Building Guidelines. If the project is a TAA, then it is subject to the determination by the SPIF on the applicability of the Sustainable Building Guidelines. So once it is determined that you will be a TAA, you immediately need to access or contact your tenant coordinator to access the SPIF form. The SPIF form here is on the right, but we'll move on to a more detailed view of the form. On the left here, you'll see the first section of the form, where it is very important that a TAA number is included, project title, the facility, the gross square footage. This is very important because the Sustainable Building Guidelines apply to projects above 1,000 square feet. And the engineer architect of record information, as well as who the tenant coordinator or liaison are, the construction cost, and the estimated project schedule. The second part is, we'll ask you to describe if this is a new construction, a reconstruction, an interior construction, or small projects on primary systems. New construction is ground up. Reconstruction is if you're making an addition to a building, or if you are reconstructing portions of a building. An interior construction obviously is an interior project, whether it's commercial or retail. Most of the projects for our facilities tend to be either one of those two. Sometimes we have a hospitality project. Small projects and primary systems are projects that deal with three scopes or less of a project, whether it's roofing, windows, building envelope, plumbing, site work, general engineering, demolition, refrigeration, boiler, rooftop unit, controls, electric, and elevators and escalators. So let's say your project is only doing demolition with some finishes of a project, and you're not touching plumbing, electrical, MEP, that project will most likely be a small project, but it would still have some of the sustainable building guideline applicability. Common challenges in filling out the SPIF form is the project teams are not providing a clear scope of work. Let me go back here because this is very important. If you look at the section below the small projects in primary systems, there is a box. Sorry, there is a box where it says well, the scope of work should be clearly delineated here. I gave an example here of a typical scope that we would like to see. For example, this is an interior alteration for the expansion of the current Terminal B travel lounge. Demolition of existing partitions, ceilings, and furniture of adjoining hold rooms. Install new partitions, ceilings, lighting, expansion of existing HVAC system, and additional air handlers. Installation of new unisex bathrooms. This basically tells me all of the scopes involved: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and it allows me a very easy pathway to determine that this is in fact an interior construction project for which the LEED commercial interiors V4 rating system applies. So again, going back to common challenges is the project teams are not providing a clear scope of work in the SPIF. This sometimes leads to more questions and more rounds of communication. Projects must provide a TAA number, the square footage, and clear scope of work for the sustainable design for the sustainable design manager to make a determination on sustainable design requirements. SPIFs have had to be revised due to insufficient information. Second challenge that results in more rounds of communication rather than a completed form is the SPIF is not being submitted by the design team, but rather it gets submitted by the coordinators. The design team should be the party submitting the SPIF, as it will expedite the process of granting the design team access to the credit checklist and templates. Tenant coordinators should be copied on all emails, but it is important that the team who will require access to all of these checklists and templates be copied on the email so that we can grant them individual access. We'll now walk through what it looks like to have to be given Sustainable Building Guideline document access. So once you receive this email from us, this is the response email for the SPIF that you would submit. This basically gives us a determination. I'm here giving a determination for an ID plus C. There was a link there that basically takes you to the folder, to our SharePoint site with all of the individual credit category folders for the LEED credits. You basically select them all and you select the download. Again, this is a person-specific link. So if you're not copied on your name was not on the email, you most likely will not have access. But again, this folder lives in a SharePoint website. Moving on. Does anybody have any questions and answers so far regarding the SPIF form, completion of the form, or access to